we're going to pick up where we left off on the last tutorial and continue on with some more advanced techniques for OOBs. There are an unlimited amount of techniques that you can use for OOBs, and this one is just going to begin to spark your imagination. Techniques are only limited by your imagination. There are so many variations. Here, this part of the tutorial, I'm going to go ahead back to my layout, and I'm going to make everything invisible except for my photo again. I'm going to go back down to my photo layer and duplicate it as we did in the first tutorial, so I'm not working on the original. In this case, rather than using the selection tool to make a selection, there are so many ways that you can do things. So do things in the way that is easiest for you, that you have learned. But you can use the selection brush tool and make a selection around what you want to be your OOB, and then hit Control J on the keyboard. I'm going to turn off this photo layer so it's invisible, and then you can continue, as I did with the first tutorial, erasing and extracting, and this time I've chose to do the entire body. But since I already have this extracted here, and it even has a drop shadow on it, I'm going to delete what I just made and use this extraction that I had previously. So I've brought it down in my layers palette to be next to the photo I'm working on. And so you're going to extract it as you did in the first part of the tutorial. And now we're going to make a template on a new layer. And so with this photo layer is the active layer, I'm going to do a create new layer, and you'll see it puts a new layer between the extracted layer and the photo. And I'm going to simply make a square selection, and I'm going to get my paint bucket, and it doesn't really matter what color you fill this with, although I'm using black, because this is just a template. It's not something we're going to keep and retain. We're going to eventually delete it. Control D to deselect on the keyboard, and then I'm going to sort of position this. Maybe I want it to cover the snowboard, I don't know. Let's go back to the tutorial. And now we're going to change the perspective on the template. If you will read my previous tutorial in course 1 on I'm having a brain fart, I can't remember, on the transform tool, that's what it is. You will learn more about perspective there and ways to change it and to see how it works. But if you hold down the Shift, Control, and Alt key at the same time and grab the corners, you can change the perspective on this template. So I'm going to hold down Shift, Control, Alt right now with my fingers, and I'm just going to pull in, and you can see I'm changing the perspective on my template. Now, for my purposes, since the hill is going down this way, and the side that is larger is going to feel closer to you, and the side that is smaller is going to feel farther away. And so I'm going to change my perspective to fit my photo in this way, and then I'm going to accept it. Let's go back to the tutorial. Now I'm going to cut the background with my template, And so I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on the Layers palette to get marching ants around my template. I'm going to make this photo layer the active layer and just hit Control J. Let's make the template invisible and the photo layer invisible, and you can see now what I have cut out. And the next step is to add a stroke or border and drop shadows to your extraction. And so I'm going to go, I want a white border, so I'm going to make my foreground white. I'm going to go to the Edit drop down menu, Stroke, and I think I want a rather large stroke. Let's try 25, and you can see there it put a stroke right around my new selection. I do not need this anymore, so I'm going to get rid of my template. And I'm going to add a drop shadow. Now, Photoshop Elements 6 took out the choice for global lighting, and so that is often frustrating. Makes it very much more difficult to do advanced techniques. But if you double click on the FX here in the Layers palette, it does bring up the style setting, and you can play with those drop shadows to get a variety of shadows. Of course, to do one where you change the angle globally is going to be a little bit harder, and I'm going to cover that here in just a minute. Here's another suggestion, a more advanced. You can leave it just as it is here. Oh, it's still saving it. Wait for program to respond. It's going to come back in just a moment. There it is. I want to tile this so that I can have my scroll bars when I zoom in and out. What I can do next is to trying to see what my layers are here, is to create a new layer directly above the photo layer, but between the frame layer and the extracted layer. And with my rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to go ahead and draw a selection the same size as my photo. Of course, I could also hold down the Control key and click right here on my photo layer to get the exact size of that photo. And now I'm going to choose a light blue color, get my paint bucket, and I'm going to fill that layer with that light blue color and hit Control D. Thereafter, I'm going to lower the opacity of that until the photo shows through. If I bring up the rest of my layout, I think I'm missing a word. I'm missing the snowflakes. You can see now that this gives a whole new look to the layout. That's just something simple you can do for yet another technique. Of course, you can continue with the techniques. You can also use the levels tool to alter the background photo. You can run a blur filter on the background photo to make it look different. That would be really good with action shots. The possibilities are just endless. You could, instead of using this, you could simply lower the opacity on the background photo and allow it to blend with the white below. and that actually looks better with the text that I have. You can, looks like I played with the drop shadow. You can change, this is where I'll show you how to play with this drop shadow. Since I cannot change the angle of the drop shadow in PSE 6, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, and on the lower layer I'm going to go to the Edit drop down menu, Fill Layer, and I'm going to choose the 50% gray and click OK. Whoops, that's not correct. Let's try again. Let's go to the lower copy of that frame layer and hold down the Control key and click on the layer in the Layers palette to get marching ants around it. Now go to the Edit drop down menu, and we're going to fill Selection rather than the entire layout with 50% gray. Hit Control D. Now you can see there's that gray layer. We are going to go to the Filter drop down menu, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just change the slider to blur the edges of this. If it's not enough, you can go and just hit let's see, what is it? Control F, and it will run that exact same filter. Control F runs the filter that you just previously ran. Now I'm going to hit Control T on my keyboard to bring up the transfer tool and use my arrows on my keyboard to move one notch at a time this new drop shadow layer over to the left and down a little bit. And you can see here it's created a great effect. I kind of like the gray as it is, but it doesn't match the other drop shadow that I have, and so I can go to the drop shadow layer, Enhance, Adjust Color, or you can just do Control U on your keyboard to bring up the hue and saturation boxes and move the slider to darken it up until it matches the other. I see it needs to be dropped down a little bit more to match the other drop shadow that I have. The other drop shadow that I'm talking about is on this original layer. Here's my problem. Let's clear the layer style on my drop shadow. I had a layer style on my drop shadow. Now that looks like it matches much better. In fact, I'm going to zoom in and hit Control T again and move this down to match, line it up with the other drop shadow on the other layer. If I wanted to, I can make that even more dramatic by moving it more to the left, and I can even stretch it on out to match the other one by resizing it. You can see that makes a totally different look to that frame. I noticed, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. I noticed in my tutorial that I played with it some more, and I actually, let's get the magic eraser and erase this. Whoops, let's not, we want to do contiguous. Probably, well, it's taking out some of my snow, but I would take time to get rid of that more accurately, but I can even delete, let's delete even some more, taking this back so he's coming out of that even more than he was before. And I'm going to then add a new stroke in white, around that, and I can make another drop shadow layer. I'm just going to do this quickly. Blur, Control D to deselect, Control T. You can see how after you get to know your program well, you can do these things fairly quickly. And if I hold down my Control key on the shadow layer and the frame layer and him extracted, I can actually enlarge all of these together and make yet, somehow I don't, let's undo, somehow I don't have the shadow layer. There we go, and I can enlarge these and make yet even another kind of layout. Of course I would move my text up to fit. And so then you can just play with it until you get what you want. Let's say I don't want this original with the lower opacity. I would rather go back and have this kind of background. I'll have to lower it. And you can do that. That even gives a whole new look. There are so many possibilities and ways that you can use to play with it. It all depends on your photo too and what directions you want to go with it. And so I just encourage you just to get out there and play with it. And you know, you see me here, I'm still playing because I cannot stop playing. And just keep playing with it to get a total variety of things until you find something that you feel is really cool. And then please do share in the forums. And I really look forward to seeing your artistic side come out in your layouts.